Hi, I'm Bobby Grezik, and welcome to this book review. This particular review is going to focus on the good, the bad, and the undead. The second book in the Hollows series by Kim Harrison. In part one of this review, I'll be covering the book itself, the plot, development, the characters, and Kim Harrison's impeccable writing style. And in part two of this review, I'll be covering the audio presentation read by Marguerite Gavin. So let's get started. The Good, the Bad, and the Undead basically picks up on a plot line that is placed in book one, Dead Witch Walking, whereby Rachel is left with a demon mark, which means a demon can basically track her at will and to some degree, and can coerce her, or try to in this case, because Rachel is a very strong-willed character. You get to see a lot more development of Nick Sparagamos, a character that you initially kind of like in book one, when you meet him in the rat fights. But in this book, you see a different side to Nick, a very dangerous side. He is messing around with calling this one demon, and attempting to make bargains with it, and it's really not a safe avenue to be going down. This book, the plot line is that the one government agency that is sort of opposite the IS, it's called the FIB. They hire Rachel to find out who is killing leyline witches, and they make her enroll in this class at the university, taught by this teacher that had initially agreed to actually flunk Rachel on direct request from her father, because of her having an innate ability to tap into ley lines, which she really didn't realize until this book. She inadvertently, in the process of casting a spell as part of an assignment for the class, she inadvertently makes Nick her familiar, which is definitely a bad thing in the witch community. You don't want a fellow human as your familiar. And so when that is done, there is a bit of drama going on with that. Then, coupled with that, you have this plot that's going around as far as killing leyline witches. And a woman that works for Trent Calamack, Sarah Jane, had come to Rachel initially, asking her to investigate the mysterious disappearance of her boyfriend. Rachel determines that the boyfriend wasn't actually a boyfriend at all, and they actually find the body of the boyfriend on Trent's estate. But it was all a rigged setup in a way, because the demon had also a reason to go after Trent Kalmak. And you find out that Pascari, who has a very unique connection to Ivy, Rachel's co-worker and friend, Pascari is the one behind the Leyland Witch killings, and he's actually sending this demon Angelia rep to do his dirty work for him. It's an incredibly complex plot, as you can gather from this. Rachel has a very intense encounter at the end of the book with Pascari and Angelia Rep. On her way to this encounter, she has a very unique, passionate moment with Kiston, a friend of Ivy's, and you get to see a side of Kiston in this that is more appealing to Rachel, I think, than Nick is, fortunately. The book just keeps building and building, and it reaches this crescendo between Pascari, Rachel, and Angelia Rep. You also get a little insight into one of Trent's men, a guy named Quinn, who actually shows up on his own accord to help Rachel at the very end of the book as well. So there's a lot going on. You actually find out what Trent is. He's not human. He's... you find out that Trent is actually an elf, and elves are very rare at this point in time. And the fact that they are very rare, it delves into why was Trent at this camp that Rachel was at when she was a kid to be cured of this terminal illness that she had. All these plots start to really unfold in this book, and they carry on through book 3, Every Which Way But Dead as well. But you get to see more of the characters develop in this book. You get to see Ivy develop, and you really start to really feel a lot for Ivy in this book. Jinx, as I said as well, is one of those characters that grows on you. And in this book, this is no exception. He really makes quite the impression, and really tries his best to help Rachel in this book. But at the end, Rachel is left on her own to handle Pascari, and it's really it's a great book. It is. And at the end of the book, Rachel succeeds in really freaking out Nick Sparagamos, and you really, in some ways, you feel bad for Nick, but in many other ways, you really just want to see things happen with Rachel and Kiston as opposed to Rachel and Nick. So, the good, the bad, and the undead. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give the book a number 10. It is a phenomenal read. Very action-packed, very exciting, very passionate at moments. and it's told from Rachel's perspective once again, so it's consistent with book one, and it's another brilliant work by Kim Harrison, and I'm very impressed by this book. Now for the audiobook review of The Good, the Bad, and the Undead. Once again, this is another book by Kim Harrison that is distributed by Tantor Media. And because of that fact, you get a very nice packaging, a plastic box case with the discs inside individually in these plastic sleeves. So in that aspect, it is very good. They are CDRs, as I've mentioned in previous Tantor Media reviews. And because of that, there is margin for error or possible blank discs. However, in this particular read, I did not encounter any blank discs, and the sound quality was fantastic. Marguerite Gavin reads the book, so you get the continuity in your head of Rachel being this particular voice of Marguerite Gavin, being that the story is told from the first person perspective. So that continuity is very good in my opinion, and Marguerite does a phenomenal job in reading this novel as well, and in embodying all of the characters that are in the book. So I have to give the audio presentation an 8 out of 10, strictly based on the fact that the discs are not professionally manufactured discs. They are CDRs. Also, as I previously mentioned, with Tantor Media discs, or most audiobooks actually, they don't come up properly in the labeling on Windows Media Player. In this case, they did almost all come up as Kim Harrison for the artist section, but in the album title, it wasn't consistent enough to be able to actually store it properly on the computer if that's how you're doing it, which is what I do to preserve the quality of my actual original copies. Also, the only other gripe I have is on the hardcover version of the book, you get a nice, pretty version. On a lot of hardcover books, you get a picture of the author looking very nice, and in this particular case, and in the case of Dead Witch Walking, all you get is a postage size stamp picture of Marguerite Gavin and one of Kim Harrison, and they're literally the size of a postage stamp. So minor gripe, but nothing major, and it is worth buying the audiobook to have on your shelf if you listen to audiobooks. I highly recommend the audio CDs of this. The price is rather hefty, but the book is an excellent read. I highly recommend it. 8 out of 10 for the audio version of The Good, the Bad, and the Undead.